Most people in my audience probably agree that the United States is special, but you might disagree in the ways in which the United States is special. But the U.S. is right up there with Russia as one of the only two major countries in the world in terms of opposition to the COVID vaccine. This is data from a Morning Consult poll of more than 75,000 weekly interviews on the topic of the COVID vaccine. And it looked at vaccine opposition, and it also looked at reasons for vaccine opposition. In the United States, 20% of the population is unwilling to get vaccinated. We knew that number from before. That number seems to be holding steady. 1 in 5 Americans says they will not be getting vaccinated. In Russia, and only in Russia, is that number higher among the countries surveyed, where 37% of Russians say no vaccine. Now, behind the United States are Australia and France with 17% vaccine opposition, Germany at 16%, South Korea at 12%. If you look at, Japan and UK, only 9 and 8% respectively are unwilling to get vaccinated. Now, there's something important to consider here. In the US, 20% plan not to get vaccinated when we have the top vaccines in the world fully available. The testing in the Russian Sputnik vaccine actually has been sort of murky. And so while Russian opposition is higher, in some sense, it makes sense because of the sketchy propaganda and nebulous testing data around that vaccine. Russia promoted their vaccine as the world's first COVID vaccine, making sort of a show of the speed with which they put it out. They've also pushed some ineffective COVID treatments like Arbidol and Gripfuron and Cagelcel. So there actually might be more empirical reason to be skeptical in Russia. And if you look at the reasons why people are unwilling to get vaccinated in different countries, you'll see that in Russia, 43% of the vaccine opposed say they're worried about side effects, and 25% are worried that trials move too quickly. It actually does seem that they did. In the US, the reason for oppositions are 34% side effects and 32% trials move too fast, which is a Republican talking point here that is not based in reality. Trials moved at exactly the speed that they were supposed to. The phase 3 trials were completed. There's a question as to whether that was the case in Russia. And then the rest of the vaccine opposition in the US is based on either you don't think the vaccine will work, you don't trust the companies that are making the vaccines, you believe you don't need the vaccine because your risk of getting COVID is very low. So the US, an exceptional country, standing out as one of the top 2 anti-vax countries along with Russia. I believe that the US is special, and it's special in the amount of conspiratorial thinking that people fall for, and often with really complicated explanations for stuff that are far more complicated than the real explanation. And it's a culmination of decades of terrible education for much of the country, terrible news sources that these people count on, which push this stuff, not understanding science, which again sort of links back to education in many cases, and a Republican Party that has adopted most of the worst instincts about every issue, and a polarization that seems to make everything, even a virus, masks, vaccines, everything becomes political. This is the culmination of that globally high vaccine opposition when the vaccine is the solution. The vaccine is the solution to the Delta variant. The vaccine is the solution to the pandemic. Now, the good news is still 80% of the country will get vaccinated, or at least probably will. There's an 11% slice that says they're unsure right now, but only 20%, is definitely opposed to the vaccine. If we were to get to 80% vaccination, we would absolutely crush this virus, Delta variant and all. So if we want to find something positive here, that is exactly what it would be. We'll have more coverage of this on our Instagram page. So make sure you're following us there at David Pakman Show. And make sure you're following me on Instagram as well at david.pakman.